Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today I am bringing you guys my last draft of the Innistrad Chaos season. Sadly, it'll be coming to a close here in the video department. I do have some other drafts that I was considering turning into videos, but just running a little low on time to make it happen. There's a lot of stuff I have to get to right now, including finals, so thought I would take time out of my day to bring you guys this last pretty sweet draft. Which really, in my opinion, shows you exactly how I feel about this format. So without any further ado, let's dive into the picks. Alright, so I'm not a fan of taking gold cards super early, but pack 1, pick 1 here we have, I don't know how to pronounce this thing, Maid of Dishonor. 4 mana for a 4/5, which is already pretty beefy. And then when it enters the battlefield, you create a blood. You get bloods when your other vampires enter as well. And then you can sack a blood to drain, which seems maybe like what blood should have done all along. But anyway, this card is super, super powerful, even without other vampires in this Chaos format. And the rest of the pack, just nothing super exciting. There's a Gift of Fangs, which is fine. Goes in the same kind of deck, probably. Lacerate Flesh, a little overcosted. Best cards are probably Markov Purifier and maybe Foreboding Statue. And although this is a strong card and it does keep you open, I thought the Ange was just too much of a bomb, didn't want to pass it, so decided to go with this one here over some of the more flexible cards in the pack. Alright, pack 1, pick 2. We see multiple powerful white cards, as is tradition in original Innistrad, Midnight Haunting, and Abyssinian Priest. But we have a strong black and red card here, and there's one good black card in the pack in Victim of Night. This card's not great. It's a little tricky to cast, and there are a lot of cards that it cannot target. But it is also a really important card. If you are trying to pick up some removal, instant speed really goes a long way, and it is cheap to cast, if not very easy to cast. Also worth pointing out that there's a Moorland Haunt in the pack. Cards like this can be very powerful. These lands, one of them helped me trophy. It was the Slayer's Stronghold. That card's amazing in Limited, not just Amulet Titan in Modern. But for me here, I decided that even though the white cards might be marginally better, Victim of Night is going to be my choice to back up that pack 1, pick 1. Alright, next up here, we have some reasonable cards in blue and black. We have a Butcher Ghoul here, Geist Snatch, which is fine, Ghostly Flicker, fun combo card, but we also have a Marrow Bats, and I picked this card pretty highly the time I saw it before. I picked it over a Silverblade Paladin, which may or may not have been correct, but what I do think is correct is my evaluation of the card. This card is very strong. Other people don't like it very much. But you're not really going to expect to wheel it from an Avacyn Restored pack. People see the frail body in terms of toughness and think that this card dies often. It really doesn't. This thing hits for so much damage, and you can pay the life to keep it alive. So, great card. Happy to take a Marrow Bats here. Alright, pack 1, pick 4. Things start getting a little more complicated. At this point, I've really solidified myself into black. There's a Vexing Scuttler in the pack, which can be a pretty nice card, but a lot of moving parts with this one, because you want a cheaper creature that is fine to sacrifice, and you need a spell in your graveyard, so kind of a lot of setup there, which I'm not a huge fan of, even though I like the card design overall. We also have a great red common here in the Vildan Pack Outcast. This card is really unlike any other, as Opa has pointed out to me, in terms of red finishers. It's just such a strong mana sink, incredibly powerful card, and uses mana really well. Rewards you even for flooding out, which can be a really nice kind of play pattern. But here I decided to go instead with the Olivia's Dragoon. Definitely a conservative pick. I think the Outcast is a really tempting choice to follow up that pack 1, pick 1. But this card is a really solid 2-drop. It's going to make my black deck no matter what. Black is the color I am certain I am playing. And sometimes you'll be able to pick up Madness synergies in this format too. So that is all on my mind there as I pick up the Dragoon. Alright, pack 1, pick 5. Unfortunately, things are slowing down here. Not really seeing much for black. The red cards are medium, not really what I'm trying to do. And I don't really see a reason to play another color. Tenacity is a fine white card, but it's not a reason to play white. So here I decided to go with the True Faith Sensor. Didn't take the colorless card, pack 1, pick 1, but will choose to pick it up here. It's a pretty strong card if you can get the humans to support it, and although that's not super likely since we're playing black, it seemed like a good speculative option. Alright, next up, pack 1, pick 6, and it seems we are starting to see some blue cards. So we have Gone missing here, which is a nice tempo card that also cantrips. Pretty expensive, but a good use of the mana if you've got it lying around. Speaking of, there's a magnifying glass, nice kind of control engine there. But there's also a sleep paralysis, and I already mentioned that the removal is at a premium in this format. This card is by no means the most efficient removal, but hey, we already have a Victim of Night, which can't target very many things, so this really shores up our other targets. So sleep paralysis is a good option for us there. Pack 1, pick 7. Got some more difficult choices here. Got an Ardent Elementalist, which is going to work nicely with our Victim of Night if we do end up in that black-red plan. Otherwise, Unblinking Observer is not a reason to play blue. Crawl from the Cellar is a fine card, but nothing super special. But I do like the Covert Cut Purse quite a bit. Looks like we don't get to see the backside, but I believe the backside is, 4 and a black for a 2/2 flyer with Death Touch. So yeah, just a solid 2-for-1 here with Disturb. It's going to be a good enough card for me to pick it up here, and another card to cement us into black. Alright, pack 1, pick 8. We see some very powerful creatures without too many abilities here, like the Hollowhenge Beast. Headless Scob can be okay. I usually don't want something like this early, but we have Reap the Seagraph here, and we just picked up another 3-mana card that we can quote-unquote flash back for 5 mana, but 1 is not going to be more than enough here. So happy to take a Reap the Seagraph. Now we're starting to think, okay, maybe blue is a little more open than red. In pack 1, pick 9, we see a Bounce spell, which is fine. Kessig Flame Breather, which is... It's no Thermal Alchemist, but it's still a pretty serviceable red card. But there's a Gift of Fangs here. This is something we were interested in earlier, and somehow we managed to get one pretty late. So really nice black card. Looks like black is going to be very strong in our deck. Pack 1, pick 10. I'm not really interested in a man or in a skeleton. But I am a little more interested in a Curse of the Bloody Tome. This card can kill people in this format. Some of the decks are pretty slow, and it can be a good sideboard card in the right matchup as well. Alright, next up here we get a Butcher Ghoul. It's not very often you wheel a playable card from an Avacyn Restored pack, but something about not looking a gift horse in the mouth, I guess, and moving on to the next pick. Here we're going to take a Wailing Ghoul, not a card that I ever want to play in my deck, but realistically, take inventory is not going to happen. I think I would need 3 minimum to want to play this thing. And this is such an aggressive format that, I'm really not super interested in trying to spend all this time drawing cards. Pack 1, pick 13. Believe we took a Might Beyond Reason here. I hate Unruly Mob. I don't know why they bring it back. I think it must be a flavor thing, because the card is not very good. The stats just aren't there. And pack 1, pick 14, I believe we get a Shamble back. It's just some random graveyard hate for the sideboard. And then a Plains. Alright, pack 2, pick 1 is really going to test my my discipline here, as we see 2 excellent red cards in the Ballista Watcher and the Rending Flame. And this card is an excellent removal spell that we would take very highly, probably over this Ballista Watcher. The double red kind of makes me a little less eager to play this thing. But there's also a Headless Rider, and even though at this point I don't think I have tons of zombies, and some of the zombies I do have are tokens, this card is so strong. Just the fact that when it itself dies, produces a 2/2, that this is a good reason to play black. This is going to be a strong card for my deck by the time I'm done with the draft. And as much as I would love to take a Rending Flame here, it's just not a card that necessarily makes my deck in this spot, as we are thinking that blue is going to be a little more open than red. Alright, and to heck with it all, I guess, because pack 2, pick 2, we open one of the best cards possible from Avacyn Restored in a completely different color. In the Wolfer Silverheart, this card is just an unbelievable bomb in a set with just a bunch of jank and unplayables. So the rest of this pack is really not something that we're willing to even look at here. We're just going to take the Silverheart. We'll see whether we end up in green, but it's almost more important just to hate draft it. These Qs were not firing very quickly, and this is a card you will lose to, certainly. Okay, pack 2, pick 3 here. Once again, a test of discipline as we see a strong red card in this Vampire Socialite. This is a really good card with our pack 1, pick 1 Vampire. Just a good reason to play red, very solid card. But we do have foul play here. This card is really good if it can target something. If it rots in your hand, then it feels very bad. Sorcery speed is not ideal on this thing either. But all told, I decided, you know what? The Socialite maybe has a chance at wheeling. The foul play will make our deck no matter what. So it's just not worth the risk of taking the Socialite when I can have a guaranteed foul play from my deck. Alright, pack 2, pick 4. We see a Killing Wave. This is not a bomb rare, as you might have surmised by the fact that it's still here, 4th pick. Crippling Chill is a nice tempo card. We see some good red cards in this pack too. Mad Prophet is pretty solid, and Pillar of Flame is quite nice as well. Though we also see a Tandem Lookout here, and this card really rewards you for having some evasive creatures in your deck. This is a really powerful snowball card. We already have a good amount of removal. So just getting in for a couple hits with this thing should be enough to take over a game. So starting to question whether red is open or closed in this direction, but still we are sticking to our guns here with this Tandem Lookout. Alright, and then next up here, pack 2, pick 5, we do see a couple evasive bodies for that Tandem Lookout, a Moon Heron and a Vampire Interloper. So at this point we're pretty low on 2-drops. Interloper is a pretty awkward card most of the time because the blue-black controlling decks really want to be able to block. The card is good enough on rate that sometimes you'll play it anyway, but it can be awkward if you're playing against an aggressive deck and your 2-drop just doesn't interact with their creatures at all. That said, we're not necessarily shaping up here to play a controlling deck, so with that bit of foreshadowing out of the way, let's move on to the next pick. Alright, here we see a pretty good one for us, pretty clear cut. The Advanced Stitchwing, 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer, is pretty solid, and you have this nice ability to get it back as well. No madness yet, though we do see some madness in the pack, which means that this card is basically just going to be discarding lands or other cards that we're less interested in holding on to. In pack 2, pick 7 here, we do have a pretty tough one once again with Deny Existence, which is a reasonable counterspell, Farbog Revenant, which is marginally playable 3-drop, and Press for Answers, which is a pretty solid tempo spell. At this point, I didn't think that I was the kind of deck necessarily that wanted to play Deny Existence. It's also just a little slow for the format. You don't want to have to hold mana up. You can really get punished for doing that pretty easily. So I decided to go with this Rotten Heart Ghoul. It's another zombie for the Headless Rider that we picked up earlier, and although Press for Answers could be a strong card for us, we don't know exactly what kind of deck we'll be playing yet. Alright, so pack 2, pick 8. This was a chance to jump ship once again, and I certainly tried with this Fires of Undeath. This is a really strong red and black card in particular. It's not a good card if you are just red. But if you can swing the flashback, this is a good reason to be playing these colors. Just a solid 2-for-1. The fact that the damage can go anywhere is really nice. They don't do that all the time anymore on common burn spells, so Fires is potentially a reason to move back into red. In pack 2, pick 9 here, we see a bunch of blue and black cards. Syncopate is reasonable, but we already discussed that counters are pretty punishing. Specimen, you're really going to want some combos with this, and at this point I don't have any. We picked up some pretty unexciting graveyard hate earlier, but now we get to choose a Diregraph Scavenger here, which is not only good graveyard hate on a reasonable body with a nice life drain, but it's also a zombie. So we're going to keep our eyes out for that synergy here as we pick up the Scavenger. All right, pack 2, pick 10. Another interesting choice here, we have Fleeting Distraction versus Mental Agony. Mental Agony, I think, is fine, but can be a bit slow. I think this time I went with the Fleeting Distraction. No, this time I went with the Mental Agony. This is why you check the picks. And yeah, this card can be alright, but for the most part, it's something you are going to want out of the sideboard. Not really a main deckable card in this format, I don't think. Alright, and then somehow we did wheel this Vampire Socialite. There's still a Consider, which would be a very strong card for the blue deck if we do end up going that route, but this card is just a little bit too powerful, and here a little bit too late for me to ignore it. We already have the Fires of Undeath, we have the pack 1, pick 1, so red is potentially on the table here. And red is still on the table as Mad Prophet wheels. Once again, wheeling playable cards from Avacyn Restored with very few cards in the pack is just highly confusing to me. But we're not going to complain, just going to take the Mad Prophet and see what kind of Grixis black deck we end up playing here. And then pack 2, pick 13. I think I took Urgent Exorcism, doesn't really matter. Not playing green or white in this draft, and these are both sideboard cards. In pack 2, pick 14, we get a Weirded Vampire. I have mentioned Madness a couple times, and this is one card with that very ability. It's not a very efficient card, though, not a card you're really excited to play ever. It's like a keyword or so short of being a good card. So yeah, Weirded Vampire, probably just going to hang out in the sideboard. We do get a Farbog Revenant here, which can be a nice sideboard card, potentially against the aggressive decks. Alright, and here we are now for pack 3, pick 1. Get a pretty underwhelming pack of Dark Ascension here, though fortunately for us, we do get a Niblis of the Breath. So 3 mana 2/1 that has this nice tap ability, and the untap can come in handy now and then too. If your opponent, for instance, plays like a Sleep Paralysis on one of your creatures, well, you can suddenly turn that thing into a blocker, or even an attacker. So the Niblis can really come in handy. It's a nice card, and opponents are going to want to be able to spend a removal on it. Alright, so pack 3, pick 2 here. At this point, I'm still feeling like I'm pretty low on 2-drops, and even though Chilling Grasp is a really nice tempo card, and it does have Madness, and these are both things that I am interested in, this Tattered Haunter is looking a little too valuable to me as just another play that I can make on turn 2, potentially get in for some damage. Alright, pack 3, pick 3 here, and we have another really difficult pick. We have Triskaidekaphile, which is kind of an Azure Mage of sorts, pretty defensive body, and some flavor text, about 13 cards in hand, but still a really nice card. There's also a Gale Drifter here, another good 2-for-1. I like these disturbed creatures quite a bit in this format. Scoundrel is nothing really impressive, but it can be an annoying card. And then here there's also a Defenestrate. So as much as the blue cards do look like good value and good card advantage, I'm always down for more removal. This is pretty cheap, the instant speed is nice, and it's easier to cast than Victim of Night, so I'm all for it. Alright, next up here. So really getting tempted back into red once again with this Inner Struggle, which is a card that I think people tend to underrate. At this point, it seems like it goes late more often than it should. There's also a Manic Scribe here. Delirium is not really on the menu for us, and even if it were, this card is just a bit too much of a stretch, in my opinion. I don't really have any other mill, and even though it can win a game on its own, it's not really something I'm interested in. So we have Merciless Resolve, which fortunately is an instant and can sacrifice lands, but unfortunately costs 3 mana. We also have a Murderous Compulsion. I've mentioned a couple discard outlets at this point, and this is a pretty solid card with Madness, so happy to pick that one up here and see if we get to Madness that one. Alright, so pack 3, pick 5. Once again, the difficult picks keep on coming. This time we see a Vampire's Vengeance, which could be a great great card if we ended up in that red-black deck. We see a solid black card here in the Mind Leech Ghoul. And this card can play pretty nicely if you have the right setup for it. It's also just a fine card to play on turn 2. But we also have this Skywarp Scob here. And this card is just really good value. 5 mana, 2/5 flyer is fine. And being able to draw a card when you play it is pretty great. So if you're able to do that reliably, then it's going to be an awesome card. One problem I'll point out here is it does have double blue in the cost. And remember, we are very heavy black, and we have been from the start of the draft. Alright, next up here, see some interesting red cards, but nothing super exciting. Though in black we do find an Eaten Alive, and this card might look like a Bone Splinters of sorts, but for the most part we're just going to be trying to cast this thing for 5 mana. If we have lethal or something like that, by casting it for 1, or if we have a good creature to sacrifice, then sure. But yeah, no, this is just a good removal spell, regardless of what you pay for it. There's another Vampire Interloper, but this card is considerably weaker when it's in a set of such strong cards like this at common. Alright, well, I just talked about the Vampire Interloper being weaker. We have a Forbidden Alchemy here, which would be an excellent card for blue-black in general, though this format is a little faster than the Innistrads you might be used to. And Vampire Interloper is another 2-drop. So I'm happy enough just picking up this second Interloper here, third one that we've seen total, because it does slot into our curve pretty well. Alright, at this point, pack 3, pick 8, we do have some interesting options once again. Avacyn Restored, consistently overperforming. Blood Artist, which is a card that can do some really powerful things, but it's also definitely a build around. It doesn't do anything on its own, which is not the hallmark of a card that's always great. And you really need a ton of removal, maybe some other effects like this, maybe Falcon Wrath Noble to really get this card going. So not really interesting for me. However, there is Grave Exchange, and although this card is slow, and it doesn't play particularly well with Sleep Paralysis, it is a solid 2-for-1. This is the kind of card you'd be happy to play, I think, in traditional Chaos, and though this format is faster, still willing to think about it here. Pack 3, pick 9, we see a Torchfiend Wheel and a Chosen Markov. We don't really have vampires for this, and this is a mediocre red card. So we do pick up the Undying Evil. This is a pretty nice trick. You have to watch out for creatures that already have +1/+1 counters on them for one reason or another. But the card is pretty efficient, only 1 mana to do that. You can really get people. And pack 3, pick 10, a nice card to target maybe with Undying Evil in the Enlightened Maniac, because it has a pretty interesting enters the battlefield ability. Though this card is generally underrated, not something I'm actively looking to play. Once again, would be a card I'd consider more playable in traditional Chaos. Alright, and then pack 3, pick 11. Here we just pick up a Blade Brand. Stuffed Bear is not really something we're interested in playing. Note the late Festival Crasher here. Pack 3, pick 12. I think I took the Hulking Devil over the Strength of Arms, never taking Chaplain's Blessing, but regardless, none of the cards make my deck. Pack 3, pick 13. I think I took a Wolf regardless. Let's find out which one. I think I took the Lightning. I did. Just on that off chance I want to try to board into red, even though my red is not very good, and I do think my blue is strong. Then pack 3, pick 14. Thought we'd seen the last of the interlopers, but get one to come back around here. And so now we are drafting the 3rd Vampire Interloper. It's quite a few of these guys, and we'll see what happens with them. And last pick here, we get a Plains. Alright, so this is how we ended up building the deck, or pretty close to it, I should say. I started with these 24 spells in the main, and then before I got to any matches, I decided, you know what, I was running 9 swamps, 7 islands. I really want to make room for one more swamp here, because so many of my spells are black. I do have that Victim of Night pretty early on. I also have like Eaten Alive, which is double black, things of that nature. So ended up cutting the True Faith Censor, which is a pretty slow card for what is actually a very aggressive deck. Note that we have the 3 Vampire Interlopers plus the Tattered Haunter. This is somehow the most aggressive blue-black deck that I've seen for a long time in Limited, and definitely for this Innistrad Chaos format. Alright, so here we are for game 1 of round 1. Pretty nice keepable hand here with 2 lands, double Interloper, and the funny different versions of them are going to keep cropping up as we go through here. Find a Headless Rider off the top. Drop Interloper number 1. Opponent has a Flame Blessed Bolt, which is not ideal. Now we are going to cast this Tattered Haunter. And the opponent has a Lambholt. Alright, now I think we're casting a Headless Rider to try to block a 2-2. No, looks like we went for a Defenestrate on the Lambholt, which is fine, a little conservative, but nothing too wrong with that. Still getting hit for 2 here, but not falling too far behind in the race. We're going to be able to play a Diregraph Scavenger here, which threatens to block both their creatures and is going to gain me some life pretty importantly. So Scavenger really doing a ton of work here as they can no longer attack. We go for a Gift of Fangs on their human. They play a Cradle of Safety on it, which is pretty annoying. But we develop another Interloper into play, and they are just using their Desolate Lighthouse. They don't attack with their Hanweir Lancer, which is a little confusing to me. I guess they're worried about the Scavenger hitting them. Their life total is getting relatively low, so it's not crazy. So now we develop the Headless Rider. We go for this attack. And we do have that nice Eaten Alive synergy with the Headless Rider too, if we want to get a discount on that. And we are rewarded for waiting on that one here, as now we find a really nice card to exile in the Stormbound Geist. So we do that, attack the opponent down to 4. Opponent loots and loses. And so here we are back for game number 2 of round 2. Pretty reasonable hand here. Multiple removal spells and a nice 2-for-1 creature. Second 2-for-1 creature now. Just need to find some blue mana, and we're pretty much all set. I do go for the Butcher Ghoul here. Could have gone for the foul play, but wanted to wait on that one just in case. Go for this attack for 1, a little suspicious, but if they block, then the Cut Purse is pretty good. Since they didn't block, I just cast the Reap the Seagraph, which maybe makes them feel silly for not blocking. Tough to say. Then they play the Lambholt, and they pass. I believe now I get to go for this foul play. Yeah, I do go for the foul play, which is fine. The other option was sending one of the creatures, maybe the zombie token. Could also be the Butcher Ghoul, to see what happens on blocks, so I can try to get value from the Cut Purse. But this way I make the clue, which means I can try to dig toward an island. Attack with both here. They block the Butcher Ghoul. Go for the Cut Purse, expecting it to get countered. And they have Lost in the Mist, which is one of the worst ones for us here because they get to effectively kill the zombie and get rid of the Cut Purse. But good news about the Cut Purse is it does have Disturb, so it will be coming back eventually. Opponent now goes for Relentless Scabs, which is pretty large. Wish we had that Eaten Alive available. And then here, I think I just play the Headless Rider. Can try to double block. We will get some zombie value. Looks like we're taking it for now. Potentially trying to use the Murderous Compulsion on that, and then use another removal spell. Something of that nature. So we draw a card here, finally find that island. But we are in pretty rough shape at this point. Go for an attack for 3. At least we're considering it here, I guess. And looks like they take it and we play a Tattered Haunter. They play a Drag Under on my Murderous Rider. They go for an attack for 6. We're just kind of getting tempoed out at this point. Really going to need a good draw to dig us out of this. And they also have a cultist staff, which dings us. We find an island, which seemed like we needed that to keep playing. I don't remember what I went for here. I think I might be like main phasing the either Defenestrate or the Murderous Compulsion. Looks like I'm going for a Defenestrate here and then a Victim of Night. Oh no, I'm going for Tandem Lookout. Okay, so getting a little greedier here. Trying to draw a card with the Tattered Haunter. Yeah, I think I tanked there for a while and felt good about this play. And then, oh yeah, my goal here was for them to try to kill me, or at least put a ton of pressure on me with the equip, and then I would get some value out of the Victim of Night. But unfortunately we run into this Nahiri's Wrath instead, which is just horrible. And keep in mind too that Undying Evil on Butcher Ghoul with a +1/+1 counter is not going to do very much. So here I believe I end up electing to save the Tandem Lookout so I don't just immediately die. So I go to 6, opponent attacks with everything, we block the creature we have to, we go to 3, and at this point, yeah, now I think, yeah, we get the sleep paralysis there, which is pretty nice. And yeah, once again, I'm hoping my opponent will go for an equip so I can use the Victim of Night, but they don't, which is really unfortunate because it means they have something to do with their mana. I kill the Stormbound Geist, which is also super, super awkward because as soon as I kill it, it's a lethal threat that I cannot kill with either the Compulsion or the Defenestrate. So, really awkward spot for me. I think I need a land so I can flash back the Cut Purse to block that. Opponent now goes for... I actually don't know what happened here. I don't think I just conceded. I'm really confused. Well, I don't know. I don't know if the Moto replay is wrong, but we're not quite dead. If we find a land here, or minimally if I scooped here I shouldn't have, because if we find a land we can go put this thing back into play, which can block this Stormbound Geist, and then we can just Murderous Compulsion the 1/3. But I think the fact that they tapped for literally anything maybe prompted the concession, because we can't beat literally anything here. I don't really know, but regardless, we're on to Game 3. Alright, here we are for Game 3, another sketchy hand without blue mana, but I'm going to keep this one on the play. It feels a little worse, of course, to mulligan. We can cast a few spells here now. The Dragoon is going to come down turn 2. Opponent has a Bait Hook Angler. Probably going to be casting Foul Play on that unless we find something better to do here. And we do not, so sure enough, get that Foul Play going, and hopefully the clue will save us from the Mana Screw. And we find a Vampire Interloper, so Dragoon's just going to stare at the Flame Breather. And oh yeah, I think... don't remember what happened exactly, but I thought Startled Awake might have been involved in my loss last game. Maybe not. Anyway, so Startled Awake does give me a bit of value here, but more relevant than that is the fact that it'll pretty much just kill me if it happens again. So it's now in their graveyard for 5 mana. They can put a 1/1 Skulk into play, and then if that hits me, basically I'm just going to die. So I have to answer this thing. I have to exile it in particular. So fortunately I do have that Eaten Alive, because remember, if I kill it, it just goes back to their graveyard and they can do it again. So really scary stuff here. And we develop the Interloper here, pass the turn. Opponent puts the Startled Awake into play. And I believe here I just, attack with both and then plan on sacking the, just going to sack the Dragoon to the Eaten Alive so I don't straight up lose the game with 14 cards left. So it feels like things are definitely stacked against me here. Opponent has the 1/2 from their graveyard and just a random human We go for the Victim of Night on the human, which represents a little more damage. And then now I think we go for the Compulsion on the Flame Breather? I don't remember. Looks like we do. But we're not offering the Interloper trade with the 1-2. Now I think, yeah, we just play the Scavenger, which fortunately is going to resolve here. We get the Ringleader out of there. That would have been, can this hit Startle Awake? Yes, it could. So that would have been a really nice way to deal with that if it was still in their graveyard. But using the Eaten Alive, well, keeps us alive. We do have 12 cards in library. Oh yeah, this is a really good time for me to point out that almost all the cards in our graveyard here are spells. So we have like an insanely high number of lands left in the deck. Just briefly try to do the math here. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I can see here. So I believe 8 out of my 12 cards are lands. So 1/3 of our deck contains spells. So the opponent goes for a Sleep Paralysis there. We get to Reap the Seagraph, and remember, Sleep Paralysis we can interact with using that Niblis. Opponent has a Drag Under and a Consider, so that's going to be rough. At this point, we're just trying to kill them on time. I'm not worried about them killing me. Oh, and they have the absolute worst here. They have the Flame Blessed Bolt to answer my Zombie Synergy card. So things are looking pretty rough here. Again, not worried about them killing me, just worried about me kind of fizzling out here with only 9 cards in library. Finally, we get another land. We get a Marrowbats here, which cannot attack into this 1/2 flying first strike, which is pretty rough. Even if we regenerate, it's not going to do too much there. The opponent goes for an attack pretty freely, of course. And then I don't remember what I did at this point. Things are going to start involving my graveyard quite a bit more. So I guess I'll just pop that out. So it looks like I'm casting the Cut Purse here, which does have an attack. Yeah. And I'm holding the Swamp in my hand for the advanced Stitchwing. So yeah, this was a tough game. I think my clock is going to get pretty low this game as I try to figure out how to navigate this correctly. Opponent goes for the very suspicious attack of 3/3 into 4/1 that can regenerate. So just go for the free block. If they have some kind of burn spell or whatever, then it sucks. I'm probably not paying 8 life in this spot, but just need to try to get some value and remove a threat from the board. And fortunately, that's what happens. Appears they punted. They cast the Stormbound Geist. I've already spent my Eaten Alive. And they cast the 2/2, like Rummager or whatever. Alright, so we find second island, which is huge. Now we can double spell with the blue cards. Can also activate Stitchwing and cast a blue spell. So we go for the Niblis here immediately. And I don't remember what my play was here. I think maybe I discarded this Tandem Lookout. Yeah, maybe I went Stitchwing here. Because the Tandem Lookout is not going to do too much. I do not want to draw cards with only 7 left in my library. No, okay, apparently I did play the Tandem Lookout. Well, I guess I played a 3-mana 2/1 that I didn't want to pair with anything. Not super unreasonable, but probably a better choice just to get the Stitchwing in play. The thing is, though, that the lands are valuable too. So now I have kind of an awkward choice. I have to figure out how I want to use this Tapper, because I can use it in a couple ways. I can untap the Scavenger, or I can start tapping their flyers. This 1/2 first strike has got to get locked down for these to attack. But if I lock down this, then the 2/2 Flying Death Touch can attack. So see what my choice is here, and I might go for a tap on both. I go for the Raconteur, which is a 4/4 here. I think now I tap the 2/2, and I probably get the Stitchwing back. Yeah, so it's time for the Stitchwing to return. Choosing no, of course, to the Soul Bond. I'm going to tap the Stormbound, and we find an Undying Evil, which could be pretty valuable here. We go for this attack for 5, only 5 cards left in our library, by the way. Opponent takes it, so it seems like we're doing alright. We cast this Tattered Haunter, which is really going to incentivize us to lock down that 1-2, so we can just get a ton of damage through, hopefully. Opponent has a Harvest Pyre for 1, targeting the Niblis, and this is where it's just amazingly beneficial to have this Undying Evil. So we get to tap something and then Undying Evil. So I think what my play was here, I think I was a little conservative and went for the untap on the Scavenger. This thing is already dealing me 2 damage. I'm going to fall down to 10 here, and then my Death Toucher can just trade for their 4/4. So I think that's what my play was. Possible I was a little too conservative though, and should have just tapped one of their flyers, but regardless, they don't get an attack here, which is pretty nice for me. Then I tap their Stormbound Geist. They go for a Cradle of Safety on that, which is pretty annoying for me. And then here I think we go for a Reap the Seagraph. Yep. Still choosing no to the pair, and just passing the turn. Gonna try to lock down their blockers a little later. So we tap down their Stormbound Geist, and then I believe we just go for, oh, yeah, I guess we didn't even get the chance to go for a pretty big attack, but at this point, I think I was willing to just send a bunch of stuff. Believe we have lethal here, even if they block the 4/1. What is this, 2, 4, yeah, exactly, right? But, yeah, things can definitely go wrong. Though this was an awesome game to win with only 3 cards in library. I think we played this one pretty tightly overall, which is really nice. Just being able to recover from the mill and the weird lack of lands at the start of the game. Alright, here we are for game number 1 of round 2, and we find the triple Interloper hand, which is pretty funny looking. Every spell is a black X1 flyer. Now every spell is a black X1. So we go Interloper, they go for a Celebrant. And I think we just go Interloper here. Yeah, just hit them for 2. We're going to be attacking for 4 next turn. They go for a Traveler's Amulet, crack for an Island, so at least 3 colors going on over there. And then now we get to double spell, which is pretty insane. So we go for the Interloper and the Butcher Ghoul. And if they just had like a 1 damage to everything effect, I just like straight up lose the game. I even drew yet another black X1 this game. But if they don't have something very much like that, or a creature with flying and, well, not even 3 toughness, right? Because the Cut Purse would answer something like that. So yeah, they really just need some kind of sweeper here, or maybe something that makes multiple blockers. They do have something that makes multiple blockers. Unfortunately for them, those blockers are on the ground. So we just throw the Butcher Ghoul in front of the Celebrant, so now we have this relevant 2/2 body that can attack or block into their 3/2. I think we just send them all here. Opponent trades the 3/2 for the 2/2, pretty good deal for me. And now, yeah, we got this Niblis into play. 4 2/1 flyers into play now, threatening lethal. And the opponent gives it up. So games like that previous one really like showcase the power of playing an aggressive deck in this format. Doesn't matter what bombs your opponent has if they don't live long enough to cast them. So we have a pretty similar hand here. It's going to be a strong one for us once again. Hoping that they still don't have any way to burn a bunch of our creatures as we develop Interloper number 1. They have a Fervent Cathar here, which is kind of annoying. I believe it's a human, so I can Gift of Fangs it if I would like to. And I think I probably do. Yeah, it's just a little too risky if something goes wrong for me here. I get to double spell, attack for 2. Ahead in this race, provided they don't cast any powerful spells. They have a Duelist, so kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, the Victim of Night can't kill that one. But we can Victim of Night to kill the Festival Crasher. So here I believe we play Butcher Ghoul, leaving up double black for the Victim. Yep, attack for 4. We're not out of this race just yet, so opponent goes for the attack. I don't remember whether I cast the Victim now or later. Probably cast it now? No, I did not. Okay. This is fine too. Because only taking 1 damage here, I might be able to kill a flying blocker. Of course, this card does not have flying yet, so don't need to kill that. And they also go for an Ashmouth Hound. which I don't really care about either. So now I believe I just kill this Festival Crasher after taking 1 damage from it. I think the opportunity cost is more than worth it there. Here we just cast this Covert Cut Purse pre-combat, not something you see every day, but it's just not really going to change anything. Leaving the 2/2 on the ground back to block. And opponent goes for this Moonrager's Slash, which is just a horrible beat for them because I have this Undying Evil in my hand. And now once this thing comes back with a counter, well, we have a 2-turn clock in the air. So the opponent cannot attack here. We go for the Tandem Lookout, which continues to be insane. We pair with the smaller one because they're more likely to want to kill the bigger one. Draw a card, it's an island that we don't need, and they scoop it up. Here we are back for game number 1 of round 3, and we get this beautiful keep. Just kidding. We get this hand, which is pretty fun, pretty reasonable. You just get rid of a swamp and then hope for an island at some point. No island, instead we get a double blue card. They go for an Asylum Visitor, and this is a vampire, unfortunately, so I can't Victim of Night that. Do find the island though, so now I can Niblis, which I probably just try to trade here. I don't remember. I think I do. Yeah, because this way the Scavenger gets value next turn. I don't have to worry about spending mana on the Niblis. And fortunately they have no follow-up here, so now we get to Scavenger, get some value. And they have Clarion Cathars, which matches up pretty decently against the Scavenger. Can attack through it and leave something behind. Draw Swamp, so we're never casting the Skywarp Scob. But we are hoping that the Scavenger will trade off for the Cathars here. That would provide a second creature in the graveyard for the Scob. If we do find the second island ever. Not doing so great at that at this point. Opponent doesn't attack, which I think is just very, very strange. Like, yes, I'm holding up a lot of mana, but I already mentioned that Cathars trades favorably with the Scavenger. I think you want to send the 3/3 there and then try to send the 1/1 on a later turn. Get to kill the Griffin here and pass the turn, never casting Eaten Alive on this board. Opponent has Harvester of Souls, which is pretty scary. And then they go for this attack. So I guess this makes sense from them if they just had this in hand previously. Then they didn't want to try to trade this off because now they will draw 2 cards if these trade. So of course that's never going to happen. I need to Eaten Alive that Harvester. But then I draw a Defenestrate, which actually, I don't remember which one I ended up casting because this one's instant speed, which has some really nice utility. But this one exiles, and the Defenestrate also can't hit everything. So I'm guessing I went for the Defenestrate here, just prioritizing the ability to actually kill stuff. Oh, it looks like, oh no, I went for the tricky play here of trying to make them attack. Yeah, I did. And then I Defenestrated the 5/5 before blocks. Basically, they weren't willing to make this trade before, so I'm trying to incentivize them to make this trade. Again, all because of the Skywarp Scob, which I have in the back, if I ever draw the island. Opponent has Mentor the Meek, which is very scary, and they have Desperate Sentry, which is also really scary. But now we get to fire off this Eaten Alive, fortunately. Get rid of the Mentor, no more cards for them. And we take 2 damage here, so not too much value off of that Mentor just yet. And they have a Skierstag, Supplicant, or whatever. Now we have a Headless Rider, which can do some stuff, can block a Supplicant, but things aren't looking great for us. I don't remember whether I tried to trade here with the 1/2. I guess I didn't. Yeah, I guess I prioritized leaving this back to trade for bigger creatures, which I think makes sense. And now that I find the Undying Evil, I'm really looking to trade this thing off. The opponent goes for the Supplicant here, takes me down to 13. Opponent goes for this attack, I think, yeah, now we go for the block. We go for the block on the one that doesn't produce value when it dies. We go for the Undying Evil, and then we get Piercing Lighted, which is a card that's in the format. It's a card I could have thought about and potentially played around too. And the way to play around this, if you're worried about this card in particular, for instance, after game 1, you could cast this before going to blocks, and at that point your creature is not attacking or blocking yet. So I still get some value when this dies, but I would have gotten a ton of value when this died the other way. So disappointing. Now I'm pretty far behind on board, going to need something special to get me out of this. Unfortunately, here we get a sleep paralysis for their supplicant, which is not going to be able to kill me single-handedly anymore. Opponent goes for this attack with the 1-2. I'm going to block and trade. They get a 3-2. And we find marrow bats off the top. Can try to stem the bleeding now, which is pretty nice for us. There's a siege zombie, which is very scary for us. Tattered Haunter. Am I sure I play 7 islands at this point? So I think the opponent missed a drain there. Yeah, I think they missed a siege zombie drain. We find the Gift of Fangs here, which is excellent for multiple reasons. So the first reason, of course, is killing the siege zombie, but the second is that this Murderous Compulsion has been awkwardly rotting in my hand because none of the creatures I want to kill are tapped during my main phases. But now I give them a reason to tap the Foul Bloods during my main phase, which means the compulsion will be turned on. And that is what happens here. So just a pretty good outcome for me, all things considered. And we get to attack for 6 here. Opponent goes for something, a Rebuke. I think I paid the life here. Yeah, you always pay the life. So we are pretty much dead. We don't die to literally everything, but, you know, to a removal spell and a pump spell we die, 2 pump spells we die. Just multiple pieces of interaction like that. So here, I think I just have to trade for the Eldrazi. Yeah. And we fall to 4. And we finally get that second island. Only turn 15. Took a little while. Opponent down to 6. Possible I should have done this pre-combat, but not a huge deal either way. And, of course, the card we draw is another island. Fortunately, it doesn't matter. That's good enough to do it, and we go to the second game. Alright, here we are for game 2 of round 3. Get a great hand here. The hands with this deck are crazy. Some of them are excellent, and some of them are just horrible. Usually depends how kind the top of my library is to me too. So we go for a Tattered Haunter here on turn 2. You can still double spell next turn with the Gift of Fangs and Dragoon, or the Foul play in Gift of Fangs. But looks like we're going to be playing Gift of Fangs and Dragoon after all. Get some nice pressure here onto the board. Opponent has the Baneblade Scoundrel, so kind of annoying for me. But fortunately we do find that land for the sleep paralysis. If we didn't, then this would flip into a 5-4. And then that's really bad news for me because not casting any spells, not developing my board, not really winning the race either. Because of the way things worked out here, I get to lock this down, attack for 4, so I get my 2 extra damage for the Dragoon. Alright, so the opponent plays a Dual Craft Trainer, and this thing is pretty annoying for me. They already have multiple powers right here, so if they just play one creature with 3rd power, suddenly they're attacking me for 6. And my Foul play doesn't kill it, so I kind of need to find a land here for this Eaten Alive. So we find Niblis of the Breath, which is very much not a land. And we go for an attack for 2 in the air. Opponent has a Supplicant, so sure enough they do have the Double Strike turned on with the Trainer. And they also have a Blood Artist. So Blood Artist, not the scariest card ever here, but taking 6 is very scary. Fortunately we do find that land, so we get to Foul play now. And then I believe my line is just going to be cracking the clue using the Niblis to lock down the Dual Craft. Yeah, we do find the Murderous Compulsion there as well, so that's pretty nice. So we do attack for 4 here, using all of our mana, which is pretty good. Of course, they target the 3-3, Double Strike 0-1, not doing too much here. We go for a Murderous Compulsion here. And they have an Inquisitor's Ox, so 4 mana 2-5, still kind of annoying. It's going to prevent the Dragoon from getting in there for free. Or is it? As we have this Murderous Compulsion in hand. So now what we get to do, we get to finally get a little bit of madness value. Madness, this murderous compulsion. Yeah, I think I went for the BM, almost like do it after attacking, which is the correct play if your opponent has mana up, because then they don't have an opportunity to tap your creature if they have an effect that can do that. But with no mana up, that might as well just do this during my main phase. So they attack for 2 here, we fall to 9. The Blood Artist has pinged us a few times, but once again, on its own, it's not doing too much. Looks like here, I just decided I was fine trading off with the 2/1 they have over there. So attack with everything. They're going to block something. They get a couple Blood Artist drains. We go to 7 life, but now we play the Stitchwing Scob. And this should lock the game up. We have 5 flying power in the air, and sure enough, it does. So this deck was really, really strong. Not the kind of deck you see every day. Strong blue-black aggro deck with lots of 2-mana 2/1 flyers. But just shows you like kind of what this format is about. Not really any bombs in this deck, and not tons of synergy either. But just good, solid cards on their own, and the deck lent itself to a nice cohesive strategy more than to nice synergies. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you're going to play Sultai color pair in this format, this is pretty much how I would recommend doing it, because yeah, if you play a slower mid-range or controlling deck and you don't get there on the bombs, then you are pretty much in deep trouble if you're trying to win some matches. So yeah, once again, hopefully you have enjoyed these Innistrad Chaos videos, and I will be seeing you again soon for more content.